Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lu Changshan. I will present a report on the effects of body plan evolution on the hydrodynamic drag and energy requirements of swimming in ichthyosaurs by Gutara et al. Ichthyosaurs were extinct marine tetrapods that lived during the early Triassic to late Cretaceous period, for about 160 million years. Over time, they exhibited an evolutionary trend from a serpentine body shape to a stockier one. This change in body shape also corresponded with a change in their swimming type, from anguilliform to chorangiform and thunniform. It is presumed that these changes made them more efficient swimmers. However, the relationship between their morphology and hydrodynamic properties is not fully understood. When it comes to the locomotion of ichthyosaurs, there are still many questions about the relationship between their body plan and how they moved. Previous studies mainly focused on exploring their fossil morphology, leading to the question of whether a fish-like body plan is more efficient for swimming. While the hydrodynamic properties and cost of transport associated with this body plan remain unknown, some studies attempted to represent the shape of ichthyosaurs using empirically derived formulae, such as ellipsoids. However, these representations often deviate significantly from the actual shape of ichthyosaurs. The aim of this study is to explore the locomotory strategy of ichthyosaurs. Specifically, the authors want to identify the effect of changes in their body plan on their locomotory energy cost and hydrodynamic properties. Let's move on to the material and methods part. What they would do is to create 3D reconstructions of 9 ichthyosaurs and a bottlenose dolphin using rhinoceros software. The ichthyosaurs would include 3 basal grade, 3 intermediate grade, and 3 fish-shaped specimens. The bottlenose dolphin would be used for comparison and precision assessment. After the 3D models are created, the authors would then perform CFD simulations on them, using ANSYS Fluent software. In this study, 3D models of ichthyosaurs were reconstructed, based on well-preserved fossils. Basal-grade ichthyosaurs has a slender body shape, intermediate-grade ichthyosaurs has a transitional body shape, and fish-shaped ichthyosaurs has a torpedo-like body shape. The categorization of these grades was referred to previous study. In addition to the ichthyosaurs, a bottlenose dolphin was also reconstructed, for comparison. In this study, static computational fluid dynamics simulations were used, meaning that motion was not taken into account. For a model with length L and maximum width W, the computational domain was set as 3L upstream, 10L downstream, and 5W in width. The major targets of the simulations were the drag coefficient and the drag-associated energy costs of steady swimming, or drag per unit of volume. A static model was used for the computational fluid dynamics simulations. This decision was made for several reasons, though static models tend to underestimate the drag coefficient. Kinematic models, which take motion into account, are computationally expensive and require large sets of assumptions. Previous studies have shown that morphology alone has a crucial effect on drag, and static models can effectively mimic underwater gliding, which is common among aquatic animals. Computational fluid dynamics (CFD) simulations were used to calculate the drag coefficient (C) of the 3D models. The drag coefficient is composed of two components, the frictional drag coefficient, CF, which is tangent to the object, and the pressure drag coefficient, CP, which is normal to the object. The total drag coefficient, CD, is the superposition of these components, CD equals CF plus CP. The drag coefficient can be calculated using the equation C equals 2D divided by rho U square S, where D is the drag force, rho is the water density, U is the flow velocity, and S is the characteristic length. Just notice that the drag equation, D equals 0.5 rho times V square times C and L, can be derived from the kinetic energy equation.
One of the purposes of the CFD simulations in this study was the drag per unit volume, which represents the drag-associated energy costs of swimming. This is calculated by determining the energy spent in transporting a unit of mass, a unit of distance, known as the cost of transport COT. The COT due to drag, COT drag, can be calculated as COT drag equals P drag mu equals d rho v, where P drag is the drag power, m is the mass, u is the velocity, rho is the water density, and v is the volume, which used as a proxy for mass. The net COT net, represents the fraction of COT that is truly used for locomotion, excluding other factors, such as muscle efficiency and metabolism. This can be calculated by dividing the useful power, P thrust, by the total power, P out, giving the propulsive energy eta. If swimming at a constant speed, then P thrust equals P drag, and COT net can be calculated as COT net equals P out mu equals P drag eta mu. In this study, a value of eta equals 0.81 was used for parvipelvian ichthyosaurs. And eta equals 0.48 was used for all other ichthyosaurs. In this study, the CFD simulations were performed under specific conditions. The Reynolds number, Re, which represents the ratio of inertial forces to viscous forces, was set to a range from 10 to the 6 to 5 by 10 to the 7, based on data from extant marine tetrapods. The Reynolds number can be calculated as Re equals rho v L mu, where rho is the water density, v is the flow velocity, L is the characteristic length, and mu is the dynamic viscosity. The results of the simulations were then scaled to the same length, volume, and life size for comparison. It is important to note that this study is not concerned with the absolute values of the propulsive energy eta, or differences between individual taxa. Instead, the focus is on the relative impact of changes in swimming mode on the net cost of transport COT net, compared to the relative effect of changes in body shape.
Okay, then the next part will be results and discussion. The CFD results showed that the drag coefficient of ichthyosaurs did not change significantly with geological time, morphological grade, or the presence of limbs. The left panel is drag coefficient under different Reynolds number. Without and with limbs, the upper right panel is the average CD through geological time in million years, without and with limbs. While the figures at right bottom are the drag coefficient amongst taxa, just from the collapse of figure A and B. There is no significant difference between taxa in all figures shown here. On average, 24% of the total drag coefficient, CD, of ichthyosaurs was caused by their limbs. In comparison, Tertius, the bottlenose dolphin, had only 10% of its CD due to its limbs, since ichthyosaurs' flippers are larger and their hind limbs present. Okay, a brief summary. Drag coefficient, substantially not dropped, through ichthyosaur evolution. The results showed that, when the models were scaled to the same length, the basal group had a relative drag per unit volume 1.4 times greater than the other groups. This increase in drag was found to be correlated with an increase in the surface area to volume ratio, indicating the frictional component of drag was dominant. However, when the models were scaled to the same volume, there was no significant difference in relative drag per unit volume between all groups. The upper panel is the relative drag per unit volume of unlimbed and limbed objects at same length. The basal group significantly higher than the others, and all the ichthyosaurs are higher than bottlenose dolphin. The lower panel is roughly in the same condition, but scaled to the same volume. In this case, all taxa are basically at the similar level, and some even bearing lower value than bottlenose dolphin. Brief summary. Relative drag per unit volume not changed due to bore plan. The result showed that the cost of locomotion was mainly determined by the size and swimming mode of the ichthyosaurs. The net cost of transport, COT net, was found to be different between swimming modes, with anguilliform swimming less efficiently than other modes. The COT net also varied between different size groups due to the fact that volume increases with the cube of size, while surface area increases with the square. The COT net was found to vary between different geological periods due to changes in the size of ichthyosaurs over time. The upper figures the COT net of models without and with accounting their swimming mode, while standardized by bottlenose dolphin, the red line. The anguilliform swimmers have higher cost of locomotion. The bottom right panel is the same with above, but put back to real size. The larger ichthyosaurs have lower cost of steady swimming, some even lower than bottlenose dolphin. And the figure at the left bottom is the COT net of ichthyosaurs through geological age. You can observe that, after their first 25 million years evolution, their body size maintained at the constant level. Brief summary again. Size plays dominant while swimming mode minor effect on the cost of locomotion. Net cost of locomotion reduces significantly during the first 25 million years of ichthyosaur evolution. There are several possible reasons for the changes in body plan observed in ichthyosaurs over time. One reason could be the result of changes in their swimming mode. For example, the deep body shape of chorangiform swimmers is more efficient for operating the caudal fin. Another possible reason for the change in body plan could be related to thermoregulation. It is also worth noting that variable body types evolved during the first 25 million years of ichthyosaur evolution, suggesting that hydrodynamic constraints may have been released during this time. If being big is so great, why were there still small-sized ichthyosaurs in their late evolutionary stage? One possible explanation is small body size bearing several advantages. Exempli gratia, small ichthyosaurs would have had lower energy demands, meaning that they would require less food to survive. They would also experience lower total drag force when swimming. These advantages could have made small body size adaptive in environments where food was limited. One potential drawback of the methodology used in this study is that the net cost of transport, COT net, was estimated at a flow velocity of 1 meter per second, which may not be the optimal condition for all ichthyosaurs. For large ichthyosaurs, they may have an optimal cruising speed, U-optimal, greater than 1 meter per second, while small ichthyosaurs may have an optimal cruising speed lower than this value. However, estimating the optimal cruising speed requires knowledge of the drag coefficient, which conflicts with the purpose of this study. Finally, the conclusion. Large bodies and efficient swimming mode lower the cost of steady swimming, making ichthyosaurs more adaptive to pelagic existence. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your listening and sleeping.